Everybody, good afternoon. I'm Kecia Munroe. I'm one of the moderators. I'm sorry, I'm one of the, can we start this over, the recording? Let's just start this over.
Time out. Start over.
Moderator. I'm like looking at this paper like moderator.
You can be whoever you want to be.
Okay, ready? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kecia Munroe, and I'm a member at large with the SCC, and welcome to Spirit Week. This event is a water cooler conversation with Eric Chase, and I'm so happy to see my good friend. Haven't seen him in a while, but I would like to let you all know what the next two events are for the day, actually. We have the bivocational integration, connecting call and livelihood, and that will be facilitated by Reverend Dr. Daryl Stevens. And we also have, and that's at 4 o'clock. And at 7 p.m., we have theological writing. We have the theological writing panel discussion, and that's with Dr. Carey, Dr. Williams, and Dr. McDonald. So I'm hoping that you all will be able to join us for those next events. Okay, let's see. The facilitator is, do we have a facilitator for this event? Oh, it's just us.
No, it's me.
Dean Lovelace.
Dean Lovelace. Welcome, Dean Lovelace. Welcome to the event.
Thank you. So let me talk a little bit about this, the precipitous of this, the manifestation of this workshop or this webinar, the water cooler connections. One of the issues that came up among the students, both through the town hall meeting that the SCC had and their report to the faculty, and then sharing the report at the following faculty meeting, we discussed, what are some ways that we can deal with the anxiety around the lack of informal communication, which is one of the means that students have for sharing information. It's one thing that our formal communication channels are really weakened by not being able to physically be together, but even more importantly, those informal channels, which are really one of the main ways that students find out among each other what's going on and how to navigate seminary and what's happening at the seminary. And so out of that, in a discussion with the Diversity and Educational Life Committee and the members of the SCC, to include Jen and Neil, were at that meeting, and we said, well, let's just have a water cooler, coffee pot, snack machine conversation between two of our students who have been here long enough to really know all of the ins and outs of those issues that students raise, newer students especially. And so we invited Eric Chase and Kecia Munroe, and so I'm just going to briefly introduce you to them. Eric is in his final year in the Master of Divinity degree program here at Lancaster. Yay! He is also a candidate for ordination as a minister of word and sacrament in the Presbyterian Church USA. Eric is the executive director and CEO of the Children's Aid Society, a nonprofit organization serving children and their families in York, Adams, and Franklin counties. Eric has experience in the nonprofit sector for over 30 years professionally. And Kecia Munroe is a fourth-year weekend Master of Divinity degree student. Eric, are you day or weekend?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And we'll explain that in a little bit why.
And so you are one of those students who does one of those workarounds to make it work so that you can take a class here and there between the two programs so that you can graduate.
Yes, and I started before we even knew what weekend was.
Gotcha. Love it. And so just didn't want to miss identifying you as day or weekend, but Kecia is a fourth-year weekend MDiv student. And she has been active in seminary life throughout her studies here. You see Kecia everywhere. She's a former member of the Diversity and Education Life Committee. She's a graduate of the inaugural cohort of the Rise Together Mentorship Network cohort at Lancaster. She is a member at large of the SCC and a student representative of the Seminary's African American Advisory Council. She is also a member in discernment in the United Church of Christ in the Chesapeake Association of the Central Atlantic Conference. If you were on at the beginning of the conversation when they were talking informally, see those informal conversations, Kecia can tell you that she also is a consultant to the delegate. Would that be the right?
Chief of Staff and Legislative Aid.
There you go. A fantastic job. And one of those other conversations when we talk about people being multi-vocational here, where they're going to school, but they're also still working and ministering at their churches. And that's a lot of load to carry. And that's typical of our students here. And so they can talk about more there. But Kecia and Eric, I'm a student. I haven't had my comprehensive vocational review yet. I don't even know where to start. Talk to me about that.
Wow. Okay, so I'll start because I really struggled with my CVR, which is comprehensive vocational review. We call it CVR. I probably pushed my CVR 4 or 5 times, and I am not suggesting that anyone do that. However, sometimes what happens is life happens to you. My mother passed away, and it just wasn't a good time for me to try to focus on that. So the best place to kind of start is knowing that you're ready to do it. And sometimes time is not on your side. So it's just best to reach out to your ministerial formation teachers. Part of the process is listening, because this is an ecumenical seminary, listening to what others in your classes have to say when they're answering the theological questions, and really sort of determine whether or not what you thought you believed about something is what you actually believe. And when you have some of those things called into question, have some conversations about those things so that you can kind of pin down what your theology is. Because if you come into this situation like I did, not really having pinned it down, you sort of start feeling a little lost in the sauce, so to speak. I have since that time come to feel more theologically grounded, but it's really important to sort of reach out to people who can help you sort of flush out what it is you believe, what your theological stance is. So that I would start with myself, just trying to sort of figure out what is it that I believe and what is it that I am gleaning from others, and sort of kind of flesh it out with other people, and in discernment with some prayer.
And I would agree. I probably got caught up in COVID and several other things with my CVR. Like Kecia, my mom passed away in the middle of my seminary journey, and it kind of put my brakes on for a little bit. And also because I'm doing this not as a weekend student, not as a day student. I started out as a non-traditional student, just picking up courses here and there. Then the weekend program came into place. I entered the weekend program, found that with my lifestyle, the way I'm currently working as an executive director and at a church and all those things, that the weekend, being in class every Friday and Saturday and being over the age of 50, I'll just tell you that was too much for me. And I just was exhausted. I was yelling at people that I love. You know, I was yelling at the dog and kicking the wife. No, I mean, kicking the dog and yelling at my wife. That's a joke. I'm joking. I'm kidding. That was a joke. But, you know, I was getting upset with the people that are surrounding me and love me so much. And so I kind of put brakes on it, and that put my CRV or my CVR off. And then we ended up with the pandemic. I was supposed to do it before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and then we put everything off, and we weren't going to do them online, and we were trying to reschedule them. And so I just ended up doing mine like in December, like really at the tail end of my seminary career, which is not, I would not advise you doing that. Do it in the middle of your seminary career. But because I didn't get into CPE till a year later than I anticipated, I didn't have a field education experience to add to that. So really, you know, try to follow the plan the best you can. I know life happens. But, and, you know, I also took my ministerial formation probably 2.5 years ago. So actually going back and having to look at it again and rewrite some of it, because what I thought I believed 2.5 years ago and what I believe today has really been formed by many of the courses and stuff I took through the seminary to change that theological view. So, you know, your CVR is not a checkoff box and end. Always be reviewing it and looking at that as you're moving forward would be my advice. And don't fear it. It's not something to fear. Really, everybody in that group is there to love on you, to give you some good critical feedback, to really make you a better person as you go out and do this work of ministry. So.
Kecia, did you have anything else you wanted to add? If not, you said something that I thought was really important, and then I think maybe students might miss. You said something about the field education and the order in which that should come. Could you say more about that?
You want to go ahead, Eric?
Sure. Yeah, for me, I think what happened is just because of time of working a full-time job, and CPE is like another full-time job. I'll be quite honest with you, when I took CPE, you know, getting my 12 hours a week in the hospital along with working a 40-hour-a-week job and life outside of the job at home and all those kind of things. So, you know, just making sure that you're planning ahead for that and everything that goes into that. And then my CPE got ended because of COVID. I mean, we were to go through the end of May with my CPE, and quite honestly, we showed up the Friday, I think it was the Friday before my last CPE day. We always met on Monday. I went in on, I went into the hospital on Sunday and did a shift. And on Monday, when I showed up at the hospital, they basically said, turn your badges in, you're done. No more volunteers. You have to leave because you're a volunteer. You have to leave. We've got this thing going on. We don't know what it means. You're done. We're going virtual. And I was like, it was like, bam, wall, you know? So like even the best laid plans, I think that you have to, and we did finish up the rest virtually, and we did have enough hours in to be accredited because of the way that was set up. But, you know, do it sooner than later, because that was a great experience that led into discussion of the CVR that really gives you some practical stuff. One of the things that CPE taught me was I do not want to be a chaplain. So I always come from it that internships, field education placements may teach you, not only show you what you want to be, but it may also teach you what you don't want to be when you grow up. So.
Yeah, so for me, I haven't done CPE yet because my education was interrupted because I took 3 leaves of absence during my time here. And so it was time for me to do my CPE. However, COVID hit. And because I have some immune issues, I didn't know how to navigate that. And so I reached out to my conference, to my because I'm a member in discernment, I have to go under a committee on ministry. So I reached out to my advisor, and he gave me a couple of suggestions. And so this year I ended up doing, I'm the racial justice fellow for the denomination. However, I did do my paperwork for a CPE program at the National Institutes of Health because they are vigilant about the care that they take, as most hospitals are, but they assured me that I would be okay. So when I went through the paperwork, because I have a job and I'm bivocational with school and, so to speak, with school and working, she suggested that I wait and go into a period after I graduate. The great thing about the seminary is that they provide the space for people who have CPE as a requirement to do it while they're in seminary. So once you come out of seminary, you have to pay for it yourself, which is okay. So I will be able to meet my my ordination, so to speak, requirements after I graduate from seminary, as opposed to doing it while I was in seminary. It was also important for me to be in the right mindset. I know that the little I know about CPE, it teaches you about how to listen and how to be present and these sorts of things. And with so much going on, I didn't feel like I would offer my best self in a CPE environment. So I'm still going to do it. I just needed to decide for myself when the best time would be, because I should have done it way before there was a pandemic, but I wasn't ready. And so in waiting, it turns out I think I will be more ready, and I'll be doing it after I graduate. So the opportunity to do it is still available to you, to do CPE.
So Eric, you might want to help students understand whether or not it's a requirement. So for you in the PCUSA ordination track, you had to take CPE, correct?
Correct. They recommended a CPE. They did waive a field education placement for me. That I'm currently in a field education placement. Our committee on ministry, on the preparation for ministry, waived my field education because I have served as a commissioned ruling elder, commissioned lay pastor in the Presbyterian Church, and have served several as an interim pastor. So they felt that I had enough church experience. So what I was able to do with my second field education, because the CPE was required, I'm doing that actually with the Church of the Brethren, which is the parent organization of my current nonprofit in my current ministry context. So what it's allowing me to do is to get better understanding for the ministry context that I'm serving in one of my multi-vocations as the executive director of the Children's Aid Society, which is a parachurch ministry of the Church of the Brethren. So I've kind of been doing an intensive study of what does it mean to be brethren, and for me, what does it mean to be a Presbyterian in the Brethren Church? So, and how does that compare? How does that contrast? How does that, where are the similarities? Where are the differences in our belief systems? And trying to navigate both those contexts of what I'm doing in my, my denominational work, and then what am I doing in my vocational work over here? So
that's really important. You would say that check with not only your advisor, but your judicatory in how to negotiate what you really need to take and what not, because that could have been really overburdening for some Presbyterian students that have sometimes the languages in CPE, and I know there's something else in there, all of that hits that same third year, and it becomes overwhelming. And so if there's some way to get out of one of those, or I don't want to say get out of, but alleviate that extra stress or burden, to look for ways to help with that. And so don't just take it for granted. You've got to do X, Y, and Z, but maybe you can go from X to Z.
And you're also dealing with senior ordination exams to be ordained. For me, I've kind of have spaced those out. I'm really completing those now in this season of, I will graduate from seminary and then I will sit all the exams over the next year and then move towards ordination. Because for me to try to do Presbyterian senior ordination exams while still in school and work a full-time job and be a father and an expectant grandfather and all these things is just too much. It's just too much for me, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. So, pacing those things out, I think, are important. But again, it all depends on what's your trajectory. For me, I am gainfully employed. So that's not, this is not, I'm trying to follow where is God calling me in all this, and moving through that process. So it's not kind of like career goal to change my career and do that to make a livelihood for my family. So it's just, I think you got to look at where you are and how does it work, and talk to your committee. I mean, my committee has been with me. They've really walked alongside me in this journey and have kind of worked with me through this process, because technically this will be the 6th year I've been at the seminary, but my 5th year in school. So, the 3 and done or 4 and done isn't always the way. So have conversations with Dean Lovelace. If it's not working for you, I really wanted to leave seminary with a great experience. And when I was trying to put everything all into that one bag, the bag finally blew up. And, so what my experience was not what I wanted it to be. So create it what you want it to be. And there are ways you can do that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Just work with people, work with our faculty, work with our dean, to kind of figure that out.
That's very helpful. Would you like to add anything to that, Kecia?
Ditto. I mean, he really covered it. The only difference is because I'm United Church of Christ, my particular conference requires a CPE and other conferences do not, so the gift of the autonomy in the United Church of Christ is what is necessary and appropriate for, necessary and appropriate for one particular conference might not be the same for another conference. So that's the only thing I would add, but it still feeds into talking to your judicatory and trying to find the help that you need with them and with the seminary in order to determine whether or not CPE is the right time for you and whether or not you even need to do it.
Let's talk about call to ministry. Eric, you've already touched upon that when you said, when you said that, I laughed because that was my same experience. In my Illinois conference is where I was ordained in the United Church of Christ. CPE also, quote unquote, wasn't required, but it was strongly recommended. And so I did to a summer intensive of CPE, and then I actually came back as an associate part-time for a while. But my site supervisor at the time said, "You have the gift for CPE. I think, for chaplaincy, and to be a vice president of chaplaincy, which was her position." And I said, "Absolutely not. If I learn nothing else in this experience is that I am not called to be a chaplain." I'm not doing, I thought I was called to be a associate minister in the church working with families and youth, and here I am. So talk about that sense of call. You either come into seminary and you know what you want to do, or you come into seminary and say, "I'm just going to figure this out somewhere along the line. God, you're going to answer me. You told me to go, and I don't know why, so I'm here, but I have no idea what I'm going to do." And then maybe you discover that along the way. Maybe you leave here, you never discover it. So talk about that sense of call and figuring out just what is your vocation here along the process, as you said, Eric, of the classes helping you to really, as part of your formation, figuring out just where you feel God calling you.
Well, let me tell you, when I first heard of call, I had a pastor that told me, because I was an elder in the church, and I saw this thing, and it was about commissioned lay pastors. I was running a summer camp for junior high kids, and one of the things I had to do was lead worship. And in that sect of 8 things, it said how to lead worship. So like I was interested in attending this training, and he said to me, "If you're called, you'll know you're called." And I always thought called was like, whoa, like kind of like the the Toy Story thing, you've been chosen, like you're picked out of a flock and you're chosen. And it hasn't been that, I have to say that, like there is that moment of spirituality where I feel God is calling me into something, and what is it that God is calling me to do. And if you asked me early on when I entered seminary, I would have said to you, I'm going to finish this, I'm going to go get a church, and I'm going to be a pastor in a congregation and make that happen. And then I took the social justice class with Melanie and learned about the disparity in the school to prison pipeline, and started learning about the homeless in our community and all those kind of things. And, I came in as a youth person. So I thought, okay, I'm on the youth trajectory. I'm going to be a youth minister all my life. Then I started getting old, and kids don't even know what the nesty plunge is anymore. So I was out of touch with kids, and decided, yeah, maybe that's not where I need to land. And now I'm working a lot in homelessness and with children. And God brought me to this position 5 years ago at the Children's Aid Society, which brought together my nonprofit experience and my experience with kids, and also my ministry all in one place, because it is a ministry of the Church of the Brethren. So here I'm able to put all those things together, all my skill sets, 30 years of nonprofit, my desire and passion to work for kids, and especially children and their families that are suffering in poverty or social justice issues. And finally, the ministry part of it. So I think that sometimes you just have to honor God and listen for those words. And for me, the way I hear God speak to me is usually through other people and different things. I'll read something, somebody will say it to me. I'll be driving in the car and I'll hear it in the song, on the message, so like God comes to me in 3 or 4 ways, and finally I go, okay, God, I got it. You sent it 3 or 4 times. I get it. This is what you need me to do. So I think that for me, that's kind of been the call journey for me. And I think God is still working. God is still helping me figure this out and saying, where is it that I'll finally land in this call process? So, And I think it's just being open to that. And, you know, people will say, well, where are you headed with this seminary degree? Because I have a master's degree in counseling education. So why another master's degree? Why doing this? Why, you know, and I often say, you know, I'm not completely sure, but I'm sure that God knows what he wants me to do with all of this. And when God is ready to share that with me, then that's okay. And I'm okay with that, and God's okay with that. So you be okay with that too. So that's kind of how I leave it. So that's where I am. Kecia?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to give you the extremely abbreviated version because my call story can be very long. I came to seminary kicking and screaming. Like my call was it was a very quiet call, very over a long period of time of me telling myself that I wasn't hearing what I was hearing. And it wasn't until I actually got into the seminary and into my classes, especially my spiritual formation classes, that I realized that I wasn't very different. I just didn't want to be different in my other world. And to be in seminary and hear some similar calls, some similar stories, some similar interactions with God and with spirit, I said, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. And this is where I'm supposed to be. But a lot of my call had to do with just a burning desire to do particular things that nobody else seemed to have, and they all were related to God. So I didn't have the angels swirling around and the gold light that I hear people talk about, and God in my ears, and like I didn't have any of that. So I thought maybe I really wasn't called, and it was in God sort of pushing me to come into seminary, which I thought, well, if they let me in, then this has to be God. And so here I am. And I'm like, and if I get out of here, it has to be God. And so, you know, a lot of my call experience is just sort of honoring what I think I hear God telling me to do, and and being obedient to that, because I can honor it in ways and not be obedient, like fully obedient to it in other ways. And you know, when I get stuck or when I get scared, I hear there's some fear here, or if I just whatever it is that is keeping me from moving forward, and I pray about it, and God continues to give me the strength and everything I need to continue to move forward, it continues to remind me that I am not here for myself. And so, you know, I also have a call to youth, and Eric, you know, you and I have bonded over conversations about youth and the things that I am sure you're going to do with me in the future. You know, it was Dr. Litch that sort of made me open my world to a greater view of what my life in ministry will look like. I asked her, as a person who worked with youth, how did she get from being a person that dealt with youth, to a person who was the president of a seminary? And her answer, pretty much in a nutshell, was because everybody, young people and old people, all need the same thing. They all need to be validated and loved and in community. And it doesn't matter how old they are, those things are the same, and you will see that throughout the course of your time. And she's right. So all of those, you know, working with the Gen Xers or Gen Zers who were born with the internet, and all their interaction is through social media, it has been interesting dealing with them. So all of my text and my communication with them is completely through social media, which I never thought I would do. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we have people who I ordinarily would not have even reached out to because I was so focused on youth. And seminary gave me a way to open up what I thought my call was. So I'm still going to work with youth, homeless youth, once I graduate, and I'll be in a specialized sort of a ministry in an emerging church. Like I don't see myself working as a pastor in a church. And part of my process has been to be true to myself and not what I thought people thought I should think about my own ministry. And so, you know, you go to seminary, you get an MDiv, you're supposed to be a pastor. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to get an MDiv, but I don't think I'm supposed to be a pastor. And God is continuing to confirm for me that I am doing what I'm supposed to do. So not only with the youth will I be working with Eric, I will also be working with Neil because he's the nonprofit guru. So my call has many arms, and they're still all hugging me and pushing me into the ministry God wants me to be in. So I'm still figuring it out.
Great. Now, neither of you is what we would regard as the traditional student who is going to school full-time, not working, maybe staying on campus, the residential student. You are more typical of the trend in ministry, whereas maybe the commuter student who's working full-time and especially working 40 plus hours. You are going to school and you've got your family responsibilities. You're trying to, so you're not just bivocational where you're working and going to school, but you're working, going to school, ministering, kids, family, other responsibilities. What's that like? And how do you juggle all that?
I think what Kecia just did, you breathe. You breathe, you do one thing at a time. You ask for God's grace in a lot of places. I think it's just a balancing act, and knowing that you're, for me, it's that God has called me to this. So, where God leads, early on in my seminary career, somebody said to me, where God leads, God feeds, and where God guides, God will provide. And kind of I've lived with that, if God is leading me in this direction and taking me there and doing that, then at some point it'll happen. Like Kecia said, it'll happen. And I just trust in that. And I think that, I've learned not to take myself so seriously, coming from a Presbyterian. I know you're probably all thinking that, right? A Presbyterian, we like everything in order, we like decently, we like committees, we like all this stuff, so for me, sometimes just letting go and letting the Spirit work through me, letting things happen, dwelling with the people that are there. That's the thing I miss about, this is, I miss this, even the casual conversation we had in the beginning here, because everyone on the screen, I know pretty well. Dean Lovelace, you're the one person probably I don't know as well as other people on the screen, but we've been in classes together and we've had conversation, and we've even done Zoom meetings outside of class because we want to have conversation about life and what's happening. So I think that that's the key, pausing and breathing and taking those opportunities to have those meaningful conversations and connecting with other people that are on this journey with you is so critical. And again, knowing God is there, God's got me. So no matter what happens, God's got me. Like Kecia, my mom died in the midst of my seminary journey. And if it wasn't for being in like God knew, God put me around people he knew would help carry me through that time. Because I was very close to my mom, and I lost her suddenly. She had a massive heart attack in the hospital while she was just having a catheterization, and so it was not planned. It was not perceived. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. My mom would do that. Like, that's my mom's style. She would do it in the middle of a snowstorm so nobody could get to her. You know what I mean? Like, and so, those are the kind of things that I think, having my seminary family around me is what helped to make that okay and help me to continue this journey. So.
Yeah. That community thing is real. It's just really important to be able to lean on your community when you need to, and know that they're going to be there for you. For me, getting through anything, I'll tell you that one of the most difficult things for me to do with all of the things that are going on with me is self-care, because I am the person that always cares for everybody else. Like, that's just been my MO. And I'm like, God, you gave me a gift. I need to use it on myself. I want to be somebody else's project. And I just need to just sit back and just say, it's okay to take care of myself. Like, do that. And that has been, from the moment that I got to seminary, that has been the clarion call from everyone to me, even if they didn't have a conversation among themselves. That has just been what it's been. And I'm thankful for the advisors that I've had that have recognized that flaw in me that is such a great thing for other people, is I just need to take time for myself. The other thing is the way that I've been able to sort of deal with a lot of the things that I go through and have been through is I go back and I pull out the nuggets of knowledge that I have received from my ministerial formation class, my spiritual formation class, and my pastoral theological methods class have been life savers for me in so many ways that I could not have anticipated. And so, you know, I haven't taken as much time as I would like to be with God while I'm learning about God and all his magnificent wonder and all of that. But yeah, our expression is God won't take you to it if he won't take you through it. And so I am just waiting to get through to the other side where I can just take all of this stuff and use it. And what I can't take, I'm going to go sit down and reread it because it's hard to absorb all this information while you're actually in it. So yeah, I think for me, self-care, I think is super important, and remembering your spiritual formation practices is probably the best things that get me through all of the stuff that I deal with.
And that's what I talked about on Monday. I hate to say that, but like the spiritual practice of connecting to nature. So for me, it's going out in nature, it's backpacking, it's hiking, it's being out in the wilderness, it's being out in the elements. And I think that through COVID, that's really been challenged, you know, and now we can at least get out. But, you know, the isolation that COVID, the pandemic has caused the people to be, you know, so fearful to go out into the world, you know, but to be there. So for me, it's connecting to nature, that, and like you said, spiritual practices, that's really key, having those in your life daily.
Yeah.
I have two final questions for you, and then I'll open it up to see if anyone has any questions for you. And they're bookends. You're at the point, you are ready to graduate. How did you get to that point? I mean, what are the literal steps now towards getting all your ducks in order to graduate?
Huh. So, well, with regard to the steps at the seminary, you mean, or personal steps? The steps at the seminary.
I'm a student, and I hadn't had anyone to talk to. I don't know who I'm supposed to reach out to first to get this process started.
Okay. Yeah, so so the dean's office is a good place to start. The registrar's office is a good place to start. You need to know that if you owe money, can you all still see me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure what's happening right now. I'm sorry. So yeah, if you have a loan, you need to sort of do your exit counseling so that you know how much money you owe and how you're going to get that repaid. I think that's a big thing. You need to know that your degree audit is done and all of the classes that you are supposed to take, you have taken, especially if you are in a situation like Eric and I, where you've kind of piecemealed it. You can miss things if you don't sort of pay attention to that. You know, ordering your regalia. I can't wait to do that. And just making sure those things are in order, making sure that you don't start slacking on your work, because they will still, you know, give you a non-passing grade if you didn't pass your grade, if you didn't do your work. So that's really important. And just rest and stay in contact with your judicatory if you have specific goals for yourself, whether it's, you know, ordination or a PhD program. Start now, or probably should have started at the beginning of the year, to figure out what it is you need to do to make your next step once you graduate, if you have specific things that you're looking at doing. And celebrate. Like, senioritis is real. So I'm celebrating now that that I'm graduating in 10 weeks. Because every week I'm like, check, check, check. Like and there's a song that came out just here recently because I was starting to doubt that this thing is true. The song is "You're Gonna Live to See It." I was like, okay, God, Like those are those songs that talk to you and you know that they're God. That's God saying you are going to live to see this one, girl. And so, just be hopeful and just stay energetic.
And I would agree. I think that for me, the one person that's been my consistent through the whole journey has been Teresa, the registrar and financial. Every time I had a question I didn't know who to turn to, I reached out to Teresa, and she would get me in the right direction. Because I've been through 2 deans, 3 presidents, 5 advisors in my seminary career here. So, people change. I mean, that's how long I've been there. I've been here. And so, but you just got to keep, the career map. And then we had 2 interims too, because I think Dr. O'Brien was dean at one point and Dr. Thayer was dean at one point. So add those to the mix too. But I think that, it's just, those course maps that were made out early on, taking those in parallel, I paralleled that to what my denominational requirements were, and early on mapped out how that all laid out. And again, for me, some of the courses changed. I took educational ministries, which is now something else. Like the numbers have changed. So being your own advocate and making sure but Teresa has been exceptional at helping when my advisor maybe didn't understand that, EM 100 is actually IS 101W now. She was the navigator. She was the transcriber of all that, so that you made, having those course maps. I'm a big highlighter, so I would like color code my course map. Okay, green is completed. Yellow I'm taking this semester. Orange I'm going to take in the spring. Pink is uncompleted, and I would share that with my committee on ministry on a regular basis, so that they could see my progress and I could see my progress. And now that map is all green except for 2 court 1.5 credits right now, so like just getting to that end journey as you go along. But again, that can also be partially being Presbyterian and doing things very systemically. I had to color it and coordinate it, and matched it to I still have to take Greek for my committee on ministry, but I'm graduating and then I'll take Greek after that because that's a denominational requirement. So I think that you just have to kind of look at that and pace it out. And then the Moodle site, I think the graduation Moodle site that your office put out, Dean Lovelace, has been very helpful to me because it's making sure I don't miss any of those boxes.
Great. I would just add, start with Rachel Gahn. That is your first point of reference for starting the graduation process, is letting Rachel Gahn know that you intend to graduate, so that she can add your name to the Moodle list, and that you start getting that information. So my last, when I say this would be the bookend, for the new student, they're just coming in, they're unsure, did I make the right choice here? What would you say to them?
I think we all, and Kecia may or may not say this, but we all have our moments of doubt. I had my moment of doubt. I have my moments of doubt as you're going through things in your life and you're saying, did I make the right decision? And you're wondering, like, I mean, I entered seminary at 49 and a half, and some of you are older than me, some of you are younger than me, but, with a master's degree, and I'm thinking, what is it? What am I doing? And then after that first class, when they're like talking about Chicago's, and oh, by the way, I've been through 3 different writing styles too at the seminary since I've been there, and I come from a psychology background, so I did APA, so then I had to learn MLA, and then we had to learn Chicago, and then so like it was overwhelming. But I think that you got to just have the faith, you got to just keep staying the course. If you really feel that God is calling you to this and to do this, God will get you through it. God will get you through it. Like Kecia said, I'm going to live through this, and I think that, on those times, when I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? This is crazy. Again, it was the people around me saying, you got this. They see something in you, and they just say, you're called to this, and this is where you need to be. And I think just stay the course, even in those times. And if you feel you're down and out, and we don't have the water cooler or the coffee pot or the snack machine, pick up the phone, call me, Zoom me. I think I've Zoomed with or emailed every single one of the people on this call. At one point, we've all had a sidebar conversation. So, let's just continue to have the sidebar conversations as we wonder.
Okay, sorry about that. So I've had 3 deans, 2 deans and a interim dean. And the first dean I had here was Dean Malott. And Dean Malott wrote a book called How to Navigate Your Way Through Seminary. And so I think that is a very helpful read to help you get through seminary. I also think that one thing that I noticed, and I don't know if I just missed this because I was a first year and I maybe was so overwhelmed I wasn't paying attention, but this last time back, I noticed that the library website, it has so many resources in it that you can use to help you sort of navigate your way through how to write papers and how to upload links and for videos. And I mean, it's a wealth of information that I had no idea was there. So reach out to the library, reach out to the writing teachers. The theological writing teachers is everything. It's everything. Frank Gray's name is not on here, but he was my go-to person. I love Dr. Gray. I just love him. And because all we really do here is read and write. I mean, we do have conversations. We do talk about some things. We do have some theological reflection. However, the writing is a big thing. And so, so you got to get that down. Also, Rose Germeyer, I hope she doesn't get upset with me for shouting her out. She also is great for all your business oriented things, your billing, if you're one of the students who come up on the weekend and stay overnight, the keys and maintenance, all of those things. She's really, really great about that. And the SCC is a really good resource too. You can reach out to your SCC folks and they will be very, very helpful in getting whatever you need, you first year people. So, I mean, just reach out to your community. That's really what it's about. If you stay in contact with your community, you will be able to talk to any one particular person and get something that you need. But above all, I am telling you guys, utilize your chaplains here, because the most difficult thing is to be a pastor that doesn't have a pastor. And if you're a pastor that doesn't have a pastor and doesn't have a therapist, I don't know how you do it. And so while you're here, please utilize all the resources you have, but reach out to your chaplains as well. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be wrong about something. The only thing you need to be afraid to do is to do it alone. That's what you don't want to do. So that's my advice.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I'm so glad that this is being recorded because this is very helpful. I think we need to make sure that students find this as a go-to video when they need such resources, that they go back and listen to this. I'm going to open it up now, our last 7 minutes, to the rest of you. If you have any questions for Eric or Kecia.
I would ask more so if I were a first year student who's coming into school during a pandemic and online learning, how do I make those connections since I'm not in the brick and mortar space?
I mean, I would say one of the reasons why I said SCC is because you guys have, and I'm saying you guys like it's y'all, but it's really y'all because I've been super busy. But there have been an enormous amount of opportunity through the programs that have been developed through SCC in order for that to be able to happen. There are enough emails, there's enough communication that if somebody missed something, they are not reading their email. They're just not. And so, I don't know what else to say about that, because you cannot get around the amount of things that are there, that there has that there has been to do this year. Yeah. So I would say call Jen and Neil. Don't call me. No. Call
Well, and I think just connecting with people, you know, you always do connect with people, even if it is through a virtual class. And I find, you know, my life is in connecting people with people and people's lives. And that's what we do as pastors. And that's what we do as ministers, is connect with people, whether that's in the hospital or in schools or in our nonprofit or in the church setting. So it's just connecting with people. And when you have a common connection, someone shares something in a class. I mean, Neil and I had a conversation outside of class related to something in one of the classes. And I think, Neil, you and I met through that virtual class, but, you know, just having that connection, then having that conversation. And if it becomes something, great. If it doesn't, well, you've made that connection with that person, you know? So again, you know, don't be afraid to connect with people, even if it is in this virtual environment that we live in right now, because I think that's something we're all, as humans, we need that connection. And that's what the theme of this week is connecting with people. So, you know, continuing to be able to do that. I think in the seminary is a great place to do that, because it is intimate and the class sizes are not huge, and, you know, you get to know people and personalities in your classes, at least virtually right now. But I wasn't sure how I was going to do virtually, you know, because I'm a people person. You know that, Kecia. I like to hug people and shake hands. This environment has been tough for me because, like, I like to connect, you know, with people, shaking hands, hugging, and doing that kind of stuff, and having coffee together. And so, but you still can make those connections if you want to make it happen. So
I would add, it starts at the beginning, at orientation. When we had the introduction part for the new students, and then when they connected, and that was asynchronous, and then connecting synchronously on Zoom for the final day of orientation. And they got to meet with the SCC and have an event that evening, kind of like I think a dinner virtually, or the event that SCC had with them. But one of the things that those students said was, even though the whole thing was virtual, that they felt connected, that they felt that they knew the people that they were coming in with. And so making sure that that happens at the beginning, before class even starts, is certainly important to helping to build that connection through the pandemic, remotely, through the rest of the time together.
My question is, as you two matriculated through the program, did the workload increase from year to year in the class workload?
I don't feel like it did. My experience was that it was more dependent on the teacher than it was in the course of the time that we were here, at least for me. So you have some teachers that are very rigid, and they're very rigid is not really the right word. The word is
they have high expectations.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I have high expectations. And the ones who don't have high expectations in the same way, with regard to, I think our education teacher said it best this morning. She said some people are into product and some people are into process. And so I think you have a good balance of both of those things here. And it just depends on the teacher. Some teachers want more product and some people want more process. And so, but so far as over the course of time, it didn't really change for me.
Yeah, and for me, I can't say that, like, coursework increased. Certain courses are more challenging than others. I think it also depends on you individually. I mean, quite honestly, our nonprofit course for me was an easy course, because not that I didn't learn anything, but because of having 30 years in nonprofit, that was something easy to do and read bylaws, and I do that all the time. So that was I probably found that course load less, where someone else might have found that course load heavy. You know, I think that it depends on you individually. I'm also more of, you know, visual and a tactile learner. So courses that lend it themselves with visual stimulus or tactile stimulus probably were better for me than just listening to a lecture. But I think the demands, the rigors of the seminary work has been the same pretty much all the way through for me. you know, there are those demands because of, obviously for me, as I get in this last semester, I only have 2 credits I'm taking. So obviously the demands is less in this semester than a semester that I had 12 credits. So I think that that's balancing it out as you get through it. You know, how many credits can you handle? I'm sorry about that. How many credits can you handle with, if you're working a 40-hour work week and have a 10-hour ministry job on the side, and, you know, just try to balance that out as you move ahead. But I think the rigors of the coursework and that kind of thing have been pretty consistent throughout the whole seminary journey.
Well, it is 3 o'clock, and I don't want to hold you or keep you from whatever else you have. And we have a couple of more hours. There's another workshop. So I want to thank Eric and Kecia for a wonderful conversation. This was so rich, and I enjoyed learning more about both of you. As Eric said, I have not had the interaction with him as I have with the other students that I actually came in with this crew. So, you know, except for Kecia. And so when they graduate, I'll really feel an achievement because I came in with them. And so I thank you all for coming and for participating in this. And
I wanted to add one more thing.
Sure.
I'm sorry, and I know people have got to go, but I did want to lift up Beth Grimm, who is our disabilities coordinator. I have some learning challenges based on a car accident that I had. I had a concussion and a spinal cord injury, and it changed me cognitively, and she has been a godsend. I wish I had accommodations when I first came in, like I have this year, but I think it's really important to lift her up because she's very helpful.
Absolutely. All of those are important. And even though we talk about them in orientation, it's not the same as hearing it from your fellow learners, that it can come at different times along the path, and that it's okay to realize that and to seek help.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second Kecia's statement there.
Yeah.
That's been a real help to me too.
Great. Well, take care, everyone, and I'll see you at the next event, if not this evening, tomorrow. Take care.
Bye.
Yes, be sure to come tomorrow evening to see Dean Lovelace battle out a friendly debate with some other professors. It's sure to be a good time. Thank you all for being here.
Bye. Thank you for having me.